This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, you remember that? He said, sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you.
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
I'm not going to give you his name.
So go through the countries again.
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran. So when...
Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor due to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. That is all praises, blessings, honors be to the Most High. His true name is Yahawah, whom the world ignorantly calls God. BAHASHAM simply means in the name. YAHAWASHI is whom the world ignorantly and fraudulently calls Jesus. His name is YAHAWASHI. Shalom to the Lord's elect. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Much respect to my fellow laborers that teach, preach, and prophesy in the true doctrine of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. There could only be one truth. And double honors to the elders, the bishops, and the apostles of the great millstone who taught me this truth. I want to thank the Most High, Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, for giving me the inspiration, the Holy Spirit, the Paleo Hebrew tongue, the RAWCHAA, QADASH, to do this lesson. Yahawah willing, which means Heavenly Father's will. This lesson will be edifying and to the point. I just want to bring out some information here really quick through the spirit and power of Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. At the end, I hope you've been edified. So let's dive into it. This article here is from the Hal Turner radio show, and it says more than 12 U.S. Air Force C-17s arrive in UK within 24 hours. Iran buildup. So it says around a dozen of U.S. Air Force C-17A Globemaster 3s have arrived late last night at the RAF Fairford in UK. Based upon military units are involved and the cargo being carried, it seems Iran is in for trouble again. Cause yeah, they're planning on attacking Iran. Oh yeah, that's prophecy as well, because these nations here, the Lord is gathering all these nations to ultimately, eventually go to the Levant region to fight the Third World War. It says most of these C-17 planes came from Hunter Army Airfield in Georgia or Campbell Army Airfield in Kentucky. It says reportedly carrying helicopters and other equipment for the United States Army 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, also known as SOAR. It says most of the C-17s have since continued to the Ramstein Air Base in Germany, though it is not known if they unload or loaded anything while on the ground at the RAF Fairford. 2 separate sources whom I trust, this is from the Hal Turner, whom I trust and who have provided valid inside information to me in the past, say these planes are carrying helicopters and equipment for the United States Army 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, also known as SOAR, most proceeding to Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Pursuant to the book of Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 8, it says a time of peace and a time of war. I don't need to tell you this. It is a time of war. These nations here are getting ready to fight, and it's no if, ands, or buts, because it is prophecy. It says the 160th SOAR, known as the Night Stalker, specializes in providing rotary wings aviation support for elite U.S. Special Forces operations forces, including modified MH-60 Blackhawks and MH-47 Chinooks for low-level night insertions, as confirmed by open-source flight tracking and imagery showing at least 5 MH-60 and 1 MH-47 unloaded at Fairford. The surge mirrors a similar, this is where I read all out to say this. It says the surge mirrors a similar C-17 movement about 6 months prior to the United States strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities in June 2025, suggesting potential pre-positioning for special operations amid escalation European or Middle East tensions. Though no official purpose has been disclosed. See, because America is that hammer of the whole earth, pursuant to the book of Jeremiah. Actually, let me just grab that here. I think it's in the book of Jeremiah chapter 50, if I'm not mistaken. Let me grab it. Jeremiah chapter 50. And I think it's around verse 22, verse 23. Tawada YAHAWASHI Shai. Let me start at verse 22. It says, a sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. That means war, right? These nations are getting ready for war. Iran already made it clear. They declared war on America, the West, and I believe the Israelis. They said because they know what is happening. They're trying to destabilize that government and take them down. It says a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. Great destruction. Because it tells you, pursuant to the book of Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 5, this current war will be fought with fuel and fire, fuel and burning of fire. They're talking about the nuclear missiles. So it says, it says, a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? This is talking about America. You know, we're going to get some few articles here because we know America just kidnapped the president of Venezuela and his wife yesterday. You know, less than 24 hours, about 24 hours ago now. It's all the main news. Everyone is talking about it. But it says, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon became a desolation among the nations? This is what is being asked. So let me just show you some stuff here because this is same thing. This is all over mainstream media, all over the news. You know, you got the experts that are talking about this stuff, the so-called. You got all these international governments, all the governments talking about this stuff because they're worried that if America can do this to a sovereign nation, what is stopping America from doing it to them? That's really the question they're asking themselves. It says this show was for everyone, not just Latin America. Yep, see, the hammer of the whole earth. We are big, bad, and in charge. It says this show was for everyone, not just for Latin America. Russian experts assesses Trump's Venezuela gambit. Let's go to this word gambit for a second. Is calculated risk. Let me see. Coming up, picking. Oh, what happened here? Salakia, what happened here? Bear with me for a second. Did I lose it? Oh, Salakia. All right. It says this word gambit. Look up gambit. Let's see. It says a device, action, or opening remark, typically and entailing a degree. Here we go. A degree of risk that is calculated to gain an advantage. That's the gambit. A degree of risk calculated to gain an advantage. It says, as Washington seizes Maduro, Russian analysts warn of a bold show of force aimed at Latin America and global stability. Because once again, that's the hammer of the whole earth. You know, that is America for you, right? I saw in a post recently, this guy said, why is America the world police? No, America is the hammer of the whole earth. And you know, when I was a kid too, I used to always say that. I used to say America is the world police. I didn't know anything about anything, but I always knew. I used to say America is the world police. As a child, I remember saying those things. It says Washington has sharply escalated its military campaign against Caracas. That's the capital city of Venezuela, in case you didn't know. It said carrying out an operation on January 3rd, during which United States Special Forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife and removed them from their country. Man, I tell you, this is straight out of a movie. Straight out of a movie script. The United States government has charged Maduro with drug trafficking and terrorism and intends to try him in court in New York. In response to the U.S. actions in Venezuela, foreign governments, including Russia and China, has called for de-escalation and Maduro's release. Diplomatic activity. And you know what's interesting with all this? Trump recently just pardoned the ex-Honduras president, who was a convicted drug trafficker, bringing tons and tons of drugs into America, and Trump pardoned him. So this makes no sense, right? It says, in response to the United States actions in Venezuela, foreign governments, including Russia and China, have called for de-escalation and Maduro's release. Diplomatic activity has also intensified in Caracas and other Latin American capitals, highlighting deep disagreements over the legitimacy of the intervention. We know it's all bogus at the end of the day. They broke pretty much every international law just to arrest Maduro and show demonstrated force. It says RT has compiled a commentary for leading Russian experts on Donald Trump's action and Russia's potential responses. Valentin Bogdanov, head of VGTRK New York Bureau, the spectacular style of unveiling of Donald Trump brutality, updated version of the Monroe Doctrine, which began with a nighttime helicopter raided over Caracas and continued under Trump's direction over New York. The entire meticulous documented saga of transporting Venezuela captured president to the United States, filmed at most humiliating stages of his detention, seemed designed to convince a target audience that clearly extends beyond Latin America that Fukuyama's end of history never really happened. If anything, this is not the first quarter of the 21st century, but it is the first quarter of the 19th, the era when the doctrine itself was proclaimed. No liberal, sentimentally, just raw powder. I'm not going to read all of that. Let me see. 1 second, see if anything here good. Yeah, I'm not going to bore you all those details, but I want to show you another article here. Like I said, this is not going to be very long. This is, okay, so here's what nobody's talking about, right? So I was meditating on this earlier today. So all they're talking about is that Trump ordered, his special forces, special ops, whatever, specialized units to also, they also had assistance of the people in Venezuela on that side, because a lot of people are celebrating the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro. A lot of Venezuelans are celebrating that as well. But this is one thing people are not talking about. They're not talking about the casualties that has been sustained. There's no way that you would have a president that would allow, a president's guards that would allow the president to be captured without putting up any kind of a fight. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make no sense. So, anyways, said all that to say this. Let's get into this. It says the death toll. This is from the Sputnik International. Death toll from the United States attack on Venezuela rises to 80. See, because at one point, I only knew it to be 40, and this is new information for me right here. You see, it says the death toll from the United States incursion in Venezuela has risen to 80. The New York Times reported on Sunday, citing a senior Venezuelan official, civilians as well as members of the country's security forces are among those deleted in the attack. See, civilians as well as members. If this happened to any other country, I saw in a post of an article earlier, I didn't get into it much, but it says, imagine if Russia had kidnapped Zelensky. Imagine if Russia had kidnapped Zelensky, these people would be up in arms, losing their marbles, It says the number may still go up, the newspaper added. On Saturday, Trump said that the United States has conducted a major strike on Venezuela, capturing Maduro and his wife. Celia Flores, and removing them from their country. Media outlets reported explosions in Caracas, attributing the raid to the United States Delta Force unit. So that was the specialized unit they mentioned. So it says right here, while seizing Maduro, U.S. force killed his security guards. Nobody's talking about that. Venezuelan defense minister. These people have so much blood on their hands, man. Because this is the prophecy. Let me read this here. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, continuing on, verse 24. It says, I have laid a snare for thee. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou was not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. See, the Lord set a trap for him, because all these nations are going to come against America eventually. It says, the Lord hath opened up his armory. He hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. All these missiles and all these technology that these nations, these hypersonic intercontinental ballistic missiles that these nations are making, a lot of these missiles will be headed towards America's way very soon. That's thus say the Lord, thus say the Bible. It says, the Lord has opened up his armory. He hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work the Lord power of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans and America. It says, come against her from the uttermost border, open her storehouses, and cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly, that nothing of her be left. Because that is the ultimate destiny, that's the ultimate prophecy, the destruction of America. See, come against her from the utmost border. We're talking about nations, Russia and its allies, and open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. Let's go to a precept for that. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 13 and verse 22. It says, right to the point, it says, and the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and the dragons in their pleasant palaces. That's talking about what? The White House and all these Super Bowl arenas and all these Congress buildings and stuff. It says, and the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Because that's prophecy. America is in its 250th year this year, and it says the average age of an empire is 250 years. Let's grab a precept. It says, this is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 8. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations. You go into a country, you accuse a foreign president of another sovereign country that he's involved in some type of narco-type illicit activities without any form of proof, saying that he's killing American citizens, and you go in and you arrest him and his wife, kill 80 people and counting. They're spoiling nations, robbing nations. Is all to what? Reap their resources ultimately and put in their own people they want in the government, so they can continue rape, rob, and pillage. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. See, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and all that dwell therein. Yes, because they have spoiled many nations, man. Now the precept to that is, let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 33, and verse 1. You see, it says, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled. America, and dealest treacherously. They dealt treacherously with these nations, creating these lies to justify their wickedness. And they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. Because these nations are preparing for America. They're thinking that if they can do this to Maduro, what can they not do to us? This is what these nations are thinking, and it makes sense to them. You see, let's go here. I asked chat a question earlier. I said, did America violate any international laws arresting Maduro and his wife? See, of course, chat never gave a direct response, but it says legality of capture of Venezuela Maduro and focus on United Nations, yada yada yada. These things that they don't even acknowledge United Nations. It says sovereignty and use of force. Under the United Nations Charter, all states must refrain from the use of force in other states' territory except in limited circumstances. Example, self-defense. They cannot claim self-defense in this under Article 51 or with the United Nations Security Council authorization. And they didn't even get authorization from their own Congress. And 80 plus people, this is what the news is not talking about. Experts and legal analysts says the United States military operation in Venezuela to seize Maduro lacked both UN authorization and Venezuelan government consent, making it inconsistent with this core norm. The UN Secretary General warned the operation sets a dangerous precedent. Come on, seriously. Because it bypasses these legal safeguards. You think America cares about what the UN, American Israelis, they don't care about the UN. They prove it time in and time out. You see, they're showing you that they're the top dogs. America runs the world ultimately. You see, through its handlers. You see, customary international law generally recognizes absolute immunity. Rational personae, for sitting heads of state and senior officials, meaning they can't be arrested by foreign law enforcement while in office. Let me read that again. Customary international law generally recognizes absolute immunity for sitting heads of state and senior officials, meaning they can't be arrested by foreign law enforcement while in office, except under the narrow conditions like Security Council mandates. Critics argue that forcibly removing a sitting president and his wife, who is a prominent official, violates these immunity norms. Man, America got a lot to pay for, man. Lot to pay for. It says how others have characterized it. It says criticism as a violation of international law. Many governments and legal scholars have described the action as unlawful. Russia and China label the seizure of a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty and international law. See, I'm not even going to get into all these nations here because it's just pure lip service. Let me see what the justification is. United States government justification. U.S. officials have defended the operation, of course they would, as a law enforcement action tied to the indictment for alleged drug trafficking and narco-terrorism, really. And some have called it an extraction mission supported by military forces. Bottom line, many international law experts and governments argue that the United States arrest of Maduro and his wife likely violated international law. Likely, specifically principles on the non-use of force without consent from the UN Security Council, which is these people they would use these UN secretary courts, these UN councils, and all this stuff on weaker governments, like they just arrested the ex Filipino president Duarte on all types of trumped up charges as well, which these people are just guilty of the same. This shows you the hypocrisy, right? It says many international law experts and governments argue that the United States arrest of Maduro and his wife likely violated international law, specifically principles on the non-use of force without the consent of the UN Security Council authorization, respect for sovereignty, and the immunity of heads of states. They don't respect the sovereignty, man. Come on. It says the United States government frames the action as a law enforcement mission tied to domestic charges. International law does not have a centralized enforcement mechanism to reverse or nullify such actions. So the dispute is largely political. That's your loophole there, and normative rather than judicial. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 90. Is it 94? Right to the point. Psalms 94 and verse 20. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which framest mischief by a law?" See, which framest mischief by Allah. They create all these lies and then try to put them on paper to justify their wickedness. They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. 80 plus people were deleted as a result of America show and tell. Man, one more precept and we close out. This is the book of Revelation chapter 18 and verse 24. Because this is talking about all the wickedness America have done, and the judgment has reached the heavens. It says, and in her was found the blood of the prophets. In her, referring to what? In her, Babylon, America. Revelation, the 18th chapter, is dedicated to Babylon, America, the destruction. And it says, and in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints and of all them that were slain upon the earth. So America has a lot of blood on its hands. So I just want to bring out something really quick to the spirit and power of YAHAWASHI. I hope that you've been edified. I want to give all praise, glory, and honor due to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Tawada YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. Shalom.